after tonight, what we're looking at doing tonight is really multi-intention. It's a celebration of a remarkable milestone that is really just one of an incredible list of milestones that have unfolded over some 30 years. It is also, of course, going to be a celebration, as I said. It is going to be a little bit of a roast. Hopefully, Rob just said a crucifixion. We won't take it that far. A little bit of a roast, a very intense toast to a remarkable 30 years. And we also, at the end, are going to hopefully have a little bit of a fan forum where some of the fans that are attending will be able to join in. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. In 1974, Rob started SCCA racing, and reports are he won the first race he ran in a Datsun 510 after a long haul. And he said at the time that it was a lot of fun. He goes, but now I laugh and as I look back and realize how little we knew and how much we have learned since, to be sure. That was in 1974. In 1983, right here at Lime Rock, in a Pontiac Firebird, you entered the GT race, of course the original IMSA series at the time. And that was the start of a remarkable 30 years, which is being celebrated this year here at Lime Rock Park. And so many of the achievements of this team are tied around successes and big moments here at Lime Rock Park. It was just a few years, short years later, I think, you decided to go up against the big guns and got yourself a 962, hired this young guy named Drake Olson, and proceeded to show up and win in your first race. A year later, got the first pole. That happened again here at Lime Rock. Just some remarkable stories. When you get through all of the achievements that this team has put together over the years, it is really stunning in these 30 years, particularly when you think of the fact that it has been going up oftentimes against major manufacturers and doing it as a true independent team. And this list to me is absolutely amazing. Over those 30 years, he won championship races in the American Le Mans Series, the original International Motorsports Association, Grand Am, World Sports Car, United States Road Racing Championship, and World Sports Car. In total, 19 championships, 70 victories, 68 poles, and 208 podiums over that time. And something that I thought has always been one of the remarkable things that you have done during much of that time. Obviously there have been years when that hasn't been possible, but for much of that time, as the independent team, you ran two cars and you kept two top-level pro racers gainfully employed, being able to race for a living, do what they do best, at times when other teams weren't doing that. And I think that in of itself is a great round of applause, because to understand that there are some pro drivers that may not have had the chance to aspire to the greatness they were capable of without the largesse of Mr. Dyson. I think we need to say thank you for that. I'm going to start out with a quick story that I think encompasses a little bit of Rob Dyson. Obviously, you don't become a pretty successful titan of industry without having your moments when you are absolutely fierce and intense to be able to do what you have to do. But Rob has a soft underbelly. There's no question of that. Over my career and the time that I've spent with Dyson Racing, he has truly looked after a number of people, including some of the announcers, in a very special way. You know, there are times when you come to a race and you'd be all set up, but due to schedules, due to finances, whatever, you didn't have something set up where you had the opportunity to have a meal somewhere, and you were struggling. And during that time, I mean, you spent a lot of time with Marians and the like. Always would say, no, you go in there, you let them know, you just have something to eat and relax. And the other side of the story, and I mean that literally and figuratively, is a lot of years ago, I don't know if you remember this, but we were having a chat. I bought a camper. And I bought this camper, we were having a chat about it, and of course, considering what Thetford and Norcold are all about, he was asking about what's going on inside the camper, and it came to his attention that the camper did not have any kind of a restroom. And he said, so what are you doing? I mean, I just, was recently married and the like. And I said, well, I got this cheap porta pot thing, but it's, he goes, yeah, well, whatever. We part our ways, I leave. Unbeknownst to me, he gets a hold of the sanctioning body, gets a hold of my address. 2 weeks later, a high-quality portable toilet. Shows up in a massive box being delivered. So, folks, they say about announcers, garbage in, garbage out. He covers both ends. It was very nice. It was absolutely great. So, and I thank you for that, and so does my ex-wife. So, with that, let's move on. We've got a great dais here, and obviously it's warm, so we don't want to keep people too long. And nobody knows somebody like family. And to your right is your son, Chris Dyson, who of course is also very tied into a tremendous amount of success here at Lime Rock Park. Started a lot of things for you, obviously. And it is your opportunity, sir, to have a word about or at your father. If you want to grab that microphone right there. We are looking forward to hearing from it. And Rob, I'm going to hand the microphone off to you in case you care for some ribald retort.
Hi everybody. It's it's kind of hard to publicly roast Dad because I privately roast him all the time, as my family can tell you. So I think tonight I'm going to reserve the roasting to my esteemed colleagues here, and just talk a little bit about how special Lime Rock is and how special it has been for us to compete in professional sports car racing and IMSA. And I mean, I'm sitting right here, and it's weird, it brings back a lot of memories, but I can remember being out here when I was, one of my earliest memories must be 3 or 4 years old. We were sitting up here, came out here for a race, I think it was actually the IMSA race, and Dad and I were just playing up here on the hill, and we were watching the cars go around, and I remember Dad saying to me, next year we're going to do this. And now that I think about it, that was 82. That was probably the 82, so I was 4 years old. We're up here on the hill playing around, and I think about my son now, who's 4, he's going to be 5, and it's hard to imagine 60 years, another 30 years of this, but it's entirely possible. It's been a great honor to grow up with the race team sort of in my life, and with these wonderful people and in this paddock. It's really been an extension of our family, and you guys all mean a huge amount to us, and from a personal standpoint it's been great for me to just carry on the tradition and to work with James and Butch and Elliot and everybody. Max is here. I mean, you just like Guy, obviously. That's a privilege that's been given to me because Dad created the platform for us, and it's nice to carry on what he started. And I'm thrilled to be up here today celebrating our 30th year, and I'm looking forward to several more years. And I'm looking forward to hear what everybody else here has to say, because I love the Dean Martin celebrity roasts. I just wish there was a Don Rickles here, and I'm hoping Mr. Panoz here can probably carry that mantle. So I'm just up here to say thanks and do your worst. I'm going to hand over to Dr. Panoz here.
Actually, yes. Well,
right.
We're going to go to Guy Smith.
Oh, okay.
Guy, why don't you go ahead and grab the mic? Teammate, of course, current connection.
Yeah. No, it's this is my 8th year now with Dyson Racing, and what can I say? It's such a legendary team. I mean, any young driver. I remember when I came over to America in 1998 racing Indy Lights, and then Sports Cars in 2000, and seeing the blue and white Thetford Norco cars out there racing. For me it's like the Ferrari of sports cars. To be part of this team is fantastic. And you go around the paddock here, particularly here at Lime Rock, and you wear the Dyson shirt, and you see all the fans there with the Dyson shirts up here this evening, and it makes you proud. And with Rob Dyson, what can I say? I mean, he is the epitome of a racing guy. I mean, he gives you the equipment, he gives you the best equipment that he can give you. He gives you the best team that he can give you, and he just wants you to go out there and do your best. And there's been times out there, he always says to you, don't wad it up, but you know that if you're giving it 110% and you make a mistake, and there's been times I've made plenty of mistakes, he's never come in and kind of shouted at me and read me the riot act. You kind of know with Rob when you're doing well, but he's always very supportive, and that's amazing guy. What can I say? He's fantastic.
Thanks very much, Guy. Bobby, you competed against the team. You've also shared the responsibility for team ownership. Tell us a little bit.
Well, I drove for the team early on. I was asked, my assistant was contacted and he said, oh, they want to roast Rob Dyson. And I said, I really can't do that. I personally like Rob a lot, and I have a lot of respect for Rob. And on top of that, how can you roast somebody who's had such a shitty year? Right? But seriously, excuse me, seriously, in 1985, I think I must have been knocking on Rob's door. I was driving Indy cars, but I'd been, in sports car racing for quite a while also, and I begged him, cajoled, pleaded, and he finally let me drive with Drake Olson at Elkhart Lake in the '85 Road America 500. And it's interesting. I just saw that on YouTube or something the other night, and I'll never forget Jim Truman, who I was driving for, and who drove in the race. He had a, what they call it, Camel Lights car at the time. On the way up in Jim's plane, we made a bet that he said, "I bet you aren't going to win." I said, "I'll bet you $500 I will." And I said, "But I need odds." So he gave me, 5-to-1 odds. I said, "Okay." Well, I was so confident of Rob's car. It was a 962 Porsche, and obviously Drake was doing a great job. I think Drake had already won some races. And we won the race. And of course, I really liked taking Jim's $2,500. That was the highlight of that. And I never could quite figure out why Rob wouldn't let me drive for him again. I think it might have had something to do with the fact that I asked for money. And I don't know. I didn't have money then. And I hear all these great. I think Rob's notoriously cheap. But in any event, I really do. I was disappointed I didn't get to drive for Rob in other races because they were great teams. James won a lot of races for him, and Price Cobb won a lot of races. I mean, they were and really what the older you get, the more you look back on your years and say those were the glory days. But IMSA racing in the '80s was pretty special, and Rob's team was one of the best, top three, I'd say, easy top three teams in IMSA at a time when you were competing against the Porsche factory team with Holbert. Rob gave them the best, and so he didn't get in IndyCar racing for long. We really needed him in there a lot longer. Would love to have you back, but yeah, tonight I can't say anything bad about Rob because Rob's just a class act.
He asked for money on top of the $2,500. Right.
Well, the $2,500 came from Truman. He didn't pay me anything that weekend.
Let's pass the mic over to Dr. Don Payne.
Dr. Pete?
Dr. Pete, with the creation of the American Le Mans Series, the Atherton fan racing with you and running the team underneath the auspices of the program.
Well, that's true. And I want to be upfront with everybody here. People here tonight are all talking about some funny things about Rob. And I just want to say, Rob Dyson is not funny, okay? There's nothing about Rob Dyson that is funny, if you know him. He's dedicated, etc. But I want to tell you about a picture. If you go back to 1997, which was the year I got into racing, which makes me a newfie compared to everybody at these tables. In '97 at Sebring, with the Panoz GTR1, it was the 5th race I'd ever been to in my life. And that was the first race I wasn't sitting in the grandstand. And then I met Rob Dyson. And then later at Road Atlanta, I met him again. And Rob Dyson could see that I was really a newfie. I didn't know which end was up, where I was going. He comes to me and he says, "Don, do you have hospitality?" I was wondering what the hell he was talking about. And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, you come with me." And he introduced me to Marion. He said, "Do you have your team? You have a place to go?" I said, "What do you mean a place to go? There's bathrooms over there." He said, "No, the hospitality." So, yeah, we went to hospitality. And then later, we went to Le Mans. All of a sudden, we have Butch Leisinger, James Weaver, and Andy Wallace on my team driving. And it was my first time to Le Mans, and it was at Le Mans that I really got bitten by the bug, because that was an experience. But Rob Dyson is a man who has put his 30 years and more into commitments to sports car racing. And here was some guy, I wish I could say I was young, but I wasn't, Rob. But here was a guy new on the ground that he took the time to come and talk to me, to offer me help, to lead me through the wilderness, to provide me drivers, and later on to support our series, to carry on. So I want to tell you, there is really nothing funny about Rob Dyson, but he is one of the most dedicated sports car racing people you ever find. And if you're fortunate enough to have him on your side, he's the greatest friend you'll ever have. Thank you, Rob.
Continuing the ALMS trend, let's go to Scott Apple.
Thank you, Greg.
Oh, he's got a sheet of paper.
Hey, you got to be prepared. I'm a bit of a planner, and when I got the same call that Bobby did, my assistant comes in and says they want to roast Mr. Dyson up at the Lime Rock event, and that got the gears to turning. So I want to put in perspective how long 30 years is. So 30 years ago, when Rob was cinching down the belts on the Firebird for the first time, the Cabbage Patch dolls had just been introduced. Nancy Reagan had just announced the new tool against increasing drug use, and that was the phrase, "just say no." Camcorders with VHS tapes and Betamax had just been introduced. Karen Carpenter had just died of anorexia. The final episode of MASH had just aired. Australia wins the America's Cup for the first time in 132 years. And the last DeLorean car moved off the assembly line. That week, the #1 movie in theaters was The Right Stuff. And if you pulled out a Lime Rock on your way home and you needed to stop for fuel, a gallon of gas was $1.14. The top album, and if you've ever seen Rob dance, you know where he learned his moves, Michael Jackson's Thriller. But I would have to agree with Don that there's not a lot of lighthearted conversation that's taken place between us and Rob over the years. I don't know why that is. But I want to share with you just one roasting moment that is seared in my brain. It's probably more of a roast of me than of him, but we can laugh about it now. Go all the way back to Portland. It was a day not unlike this, very hot. We had the diesel Audis were competing for the first season, and the Dysons were competing against them, and they were very concerned about this new diesel fuel that was being used. And the whole idea of performance balancing was in its very infancy. And the Dyson group came to us, and Rob was the spokesman for the group, and he walked into our office and said, look, here's the deal. There's no way that we can compete with this stuff. This is a combination of witchcraft and whale sperm that is creating this fuel. We just saw them spill a little bit on the ground, and it's clear as water, and it evaporates, and that's no diesel fuel that I'm familiar with. And in order for us to continue competing here, we have to have a fair chance. And with that, he laid down a demand. You know, here's what needs to happen to our car. This adjustment needs to be made. You need to fill their fuel tank full of balls so that they get less capacity. And I'm going to tell you right now, if this isn't done, then I hate to say it, but this long run of Dyson racing involved in sports cars is about to come to an abrupt end. So Rob leaves the room. We assemble all of the management team. We sit and we look at all the test results, and we look at the analysis, and we're trying to compare this, that, and the other. And the bottom line is we make a decision that the Dysons have been so important to this series and so important to this industry that we've got to do what we've got to do. So we inform the Audis that we're making a change, effective immediately. And if you talk about fireworks going off, if you saw them last night, then you got an idea of what went down. And within an hour, there's a phone call. It's very late that evening, late at night in Germany. And I get a phone call from a board level member that basically says, if you don't rescind what you just did to benefit the Dyson team, we will pack up, we will move out, and we will not be back. So, as you can imagine, a sleepless night. We get back to the track the next morning. Rob, we got to meet straight away. Chris is there with him. Share the story, share the environment, what's going down. I said, Rob, we've got no choice. Here's what Audi has said. Rob's immediate response is, yeah, I don't blame him. I'd have said exactly the same thing. I said, are you kidding me? This is the whole purpose of this decision, was in order to respond to your request. But I never thought you guys would actually do it. From that moment in time, I knew what I was dealing with. And I have to say, Rob and Chris, over the last 30 years, there's been a lot of manufacturers that have come and gone from these paddocks. There's been many more teams that have come and gone. There's a countless list of characters that have come and gone. And there's one thread through the fabric of professional sports car racing that has been there throughout that time. And it's got the Dyson logo on it. And on behalf of all of us that are privileged to make our living in this industry, it comes with a lot of respect, a lot of admiration, and a lot of appreciation. And congratulations on 30 great years.
One of the things about the Dyson team that has been legend is we've set records left and right, not only on the track, but in terms of longevity of members of the team. Certainly some of the crew members have been around a very long time, but also drivers. And one in particular is so associated with the Dyson team. It's been with them for, I think, nigh on 2 decades. Retired a little while ago, but we're very happy to have him join us tonight. James Weaver, ladies and gentlemen.
Look at Rob's face. I don't know how anybody can say, you know, he's smiling. We've had so much fun together, and you know, I've been very fortunate to be a guest in this country. Couldn't have had a more gracious host than Rob. He's been incredibly generous to me and my family. When I arrived here as a 30-year-old, I was pretty much on my knees. I missed a boat at home. I was really struggling, and Rob picked me up and gave me a chance. And it made an enormous difference to me. I've had a fantastic career thanks to Rob. You know, when you're a kid and you're reading about Jimmy Clark or Nuvolari, whoever it may be, you really want to believe in those people. You really want to think they're special. And it's that sparks your imagination and makes you want to go racing. And Rob's exactly the same. He's somebody you can believe in and somebody who sets the standard. So I know we're meant to be here roasting him. Bobby, apart from his first effort, which was excellent, made a few feeble comments after that, which I refute absolutely. I mean, Rob has been a marvellous person to drive for, great person to know. But luckily, Ollie Gavin's here. So if you want to be rude to somebody, who better than Ollie? And I must tell you this story. I've been driving for Rob for a few years, and we came to the Daytona 24 Hours as it does. He goes, Jonesy boy,
Use this story.
you can't. Who should we get to drive? And they go, oh, well, I don't know. I know Ollie Gavin. Because being English, Rob always refers to Andy Wallace and myself and Ollie as the English mafia, because we all stick together, completely untrustworthy, of course. And so I said, oh, Ollie Gavin, yeah, great governor, he'd be fantastic, you know, really good guy to have. So Ollie duly rocks up at Daytona, and we're standing down at the chicane at Lake Lloyd, watching practice. And Rob turns to Ollie and says, Ollie, how many times have you raced here? And I go, well, I've never been here before in my life. So Rob looks at me and goes, you know, I thought he said it's a good bloke to have. Oh, don't worry, Governor, it'll be fine. Yeah, you'll see him pick it up. It's just like Mallory Park. I don't know why I said that. It's nothing like Mallory Park. So I thought, you know, I think I've got away with it. And then Ollie, being a complete plank, says, well, why is it like Mallory Park? And I go, oh, bugger. Oh, I don't know. It's got a lake in the middle of it. Ollie says, well, Mallory Park hasn't got a lake in the middle of it. Says, Ollie, it has. It does, doesn't it? And then he goes, oh, well, where's the lake here? Oh, for Christ's sakes, man, we're standing in front of it. things then got worse after that because Ollie's an absolute fitness fanatic. He goes running, he's done the London Marathon. Butch and I'll be having a beer and what have you. Ollie will be sweaty hot somewhere, making himself ill. Anyway, it turns out that we go out night practice and Ollie's drunk this health drink called Alpha. I think it's an Alpha APT. And he's going around 20 seconds slower than anybody else. So eventually Pat Smith says, I think something wrong, we'll invite him in. So they invite him into the pits. Ollie gets out of the car, tries to go around the front of the car to get back over the pit wall, trips over the splitter and falls over. So he goes, well, that didn't work. I'll go around the other way. So they went around the other way, head-butted the rear wing and knocked himself out. And it then got worse after that, but it's not actually repeatable. But I think one of the things about Rob is I think he's always enjoyed the humour of the racing. I think the people are larger than life. I remember once we were at Mid-Ohio and Butch and I came flying past the pits on the last lap of the race. I was in the 16, he was in the 20. Bits of carbon fibre and God knows what else were flying off the cars and we were leaning on each other pretty hard. And Pat Smith, the crew chief, turns around to Rob and says, oh, this is going to be interesting. And Rob goes, never mind that, how much is it going to cost me? But when it comes to the cost, Rob's always been incredibly gracious because we were at Mosspool that year and John Paul Jr. had a massive accident, got taken out by a back marker. The car was completely destroyed. Rob was the first one in the medical centre to make sure that JP was okay. As soon as he knew JP was okay, he was back in the pits with the team and he turned around to Pat Smith and said, Pat, can we get the car fixed for next weekend? Pat said, yeah, I think so. And that was all that was ever said. And like Guy said, Rob's a real racer. He wants you absolutely on it. I know we're meant to be roasting him, but that's about the worst thing I can say to him. He's been absolutely fantastic to drive for.
And he embraced the socks. He embraced the socks. I know. Yeah, he supported the program. Yeah, exactly. I have to tell you, from a broadcast perspective, you get those gems every once in a while that happen. And we were at the Paul Revere race at Daytona one year.
We were at the Paul Revere 250 race at Daytona one year, and this is on you, James, but it was one of those glorious moments, and I think, he talks about you embracing the humor. I know why you keep this man around aside from his blistering pace and success. Probably the greatest answer I've ever heard to a question. After James had won the race and finished, he was the finishing driver and won it, and that was, I think, you'd missed 1 year, so of the 4 years of the 3 years you ran it, you won it. Guy Hobbs is doing the interview. James gets out of the car. Guy asks great race, Jay. I'd love to explain that to you. He said, but if I may, I'd like to make a brief statement. The guy gets this look, and of course, we're in the booth going, yeah, let it happen on the talkback button. And the producer said, let him have at it. And James says, well, I would just like to point out that I, an Englishman, have just won your Paul Revere 250 race on your 4th of July weekend for the 3rd consecutive time that I've won here. And Guy goes, yeah. And James goes, well, don't you think in light of that monstrous achievement it's time to consider returning the colonies? Fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you for that. Let's head over to this end of the table and Max Crawford. Welcome, Max.
Thank you very much. I'm really appreciated and very privileged to be here. Rob and I go back a long way, and today I found out for the very first time that we both won here in '82 together. Rob had started his career here, and I was working for John Fitzpatrick, and we won in the 935 here. So it's kind of a bit of a surprise to me, and I'm really. I consider myself to be more of a personal friend than a business partner with Rob. We go back all the 962 stuff. Pat Smith got me to build. I'd done a lot of aero work for Porsche, and Pat Smith had got me to build some stuff for you in 1988, and I built it in my barn. It's basically how I got started. So Rob's been very, very close to me all of these years. He actually gave me Chris, and we gave Chris his first WSC win at VIR. So we've been sort of personal friends, I think, for a long time. It's included me in everything, and I don't hear too much roasting, Rob. I didn't hear anybody really giving you the gun tonight. So I'm gonna have a little bit of a niggle at you, and you'll appreciate this better than most. But in '97 we won Daytona, the 24-hour race, and Rob was out there, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, I always sat on the wall. I always appreciated being really close to the guys and trying to be part of the whole deal. And the car comes past in the tri-oval and it's doing about 70 miles an hour. And I'm like, oh Lord have mercy, what has happened to us? What? And I get on the radio and I say, Rob, what is going on? What are you doing? And he said, Max, I'm taking a lap off. Do you remember that, Rob? Well, we ended up by winning the race, so it was pretty cool by me. Really, really good. So then, this is going to hurt you, Rob, this one, buddy, I'm afraid, but this, we were at Sebring, and we were just at the start of Sebring, and Rob had brought the car down from the truck, and he pulled it to the pit lane. And unfortunately, when he did that, he had damaged Jim Downing's car on the way into the pit lane. So Rob got out of the car and he was pissed. He was way pissed. And he walked down and he grabbed every crew member he could find. And he gave them the right sawing about why the hell they didn't guide him into the pit lane. And I'm like, Rob, I just kept thinking, I heard this again and again and again. And in the end I walked over and I said to him, Rob, for Christ's sake, man, you were driving the car. He goes, you're right. And smiled and we carried on, got on with the race. So I have this little deal that I absolutely love the Rob for. Rob does this to me, and he's done it to me for many years, but I learned this lesson, and I'm sure Chris knows this as well as most. And most people who have dealt with Rob will have done this. You're talking away to Rob, and you've got his full attention, and all of a sudden he mentions something else to you, and you're like, oh damn it, he's not listening to a word I'm saying. What the hell? And so you sort of go off on this conversation with him, and he turns around and he goes, and that's the answer. He asks you another question about that thing and tells you the answer to it. You're really good at that. So, the one thing that I have to say about Rob is his generosity. His generosity is unmatched as far as I'm concerned. We won the Daytona 24 in '99, and everybody got their Rolex watches. And about 3 weeks after the race, I got mine. So that says it all for Rob Dyson. Thank you.
I think let's move it over. Let's move it over to Marino.
Sorry I was late, everybody. Lucky I don't drive for the team anymore, I might have got fined. Well, when I was growing up, when I was really young, when James was still really old, which means Rob was as well. James was a massive hero of mine. You know, I used to love watching him, the Dyson cars, the orange gloves, just that head-down style of his. And I really couldn't believe it when I had the opportunity to join Dyson Racing. So, I think we've heard this line already, but you know, I get a phone call, right Marino, here's the deal, here's what we're doing. And it's just such a massive moment for me. I really fit into the team because Rob's bald, I'm bald. The first thing he says to me is, good haircut. He's deaf, and I'm deaf. So, whenever I would talk about money, he'd be like, huh? Sorry? And whenever he'd complain about, whenever he'd complain about my driving, I'd do just the same thing. You know, that's about as hard as I can go on him, because it's just an absolute pleasure to work with Dyson. And just once you're there, you're a member of the family. Spent many happy times at both Chris and Rob's homes. Truly part of the family. When my family come, they're just an extension of it. He looks after people so well. And 30 years, I mean, geez. Did you still have a comb over when you started? Yeah, no? But it's just such a, when you look at the Dyson drivers as have been in the past, and to work with the team, to work with Rob, and to be a part of that is a true honour, and it's something that is very important to me. And I was hugely privileged for 2 seasons to carry those colours. I also made the point of bringing back the orange gloves to celebrate Mr. Weaver. But you know, just the thing with Rob is, if you mess up, you put your hand up to it, and that's it, it's done. Excuses are just not even listened to. That's one thing with Dyson, when you sign a contract there, you have to hand over your driver's excuse book because it just ain't going to work there. But I got to say, massive congratulations to the whole team. Thank you to Rob for having me as part of the team, and yeah, I think you need a trim on the haircut. Apart from that, you're looking good, mate, for 30 years. Thank you.
Skip, we talked about the connection that this team has with this venue. Why don't you enlighten us a little bit?
Well, I'm not a roast guy, and I'd like to follow up on the comment about generosity. But speaking from a track point of view, Rob and his friend Bob Aiken have meant so much to us, and you can think about all the similarities. I have a question for Rob here, actually. You can think about all the similarities. Gentlemen racers, but in the best sense, huge passion for the sport, big contributions, sons who were really interested, long time participation, same, Porsche guys. Rob, seriously think about it. What do you think is the single most common thing between you guys in our point of view? Any idea?
Well, it's kind of funny. I was thinking about in 30 years when someone when they brought a camera crew over to talk to us at the shop earlier this week, and I will tell you that Bob Aiken was a real great friend. His dad and my dad were good friends, and Bob was the guy that said to me, "Hey, look, you've done enough club racing. It's time to get into professional sports." But Bob, the key to Bob, and I'll allude to him later, but the key to Bob was that he was in addition to being an exceptional driver, was an exceptional gentleman. And I viewed that as a reinforcement to the way that I would have done it. And you're right. I mean, he was a class act, and I would hope that I kind of mimicked, if you will, that kind of behavior. But he was a terrific guy.
You mimicked it, and without question, nobody beyond you two guys ever asked for more free tickets.
Head over to this end of the table. Looks like he's getting his last minute notes to nothing.
Thanks for that, Greg. Yeah, let's move on.
Well, I too am a little intimidated about roasting Rob, given his stature in my life and my career. There's been a nice tribute in the last couple minutes to Bob Aiken, who was also a hero of mine. I really patterned my experiences in professional sports car racing after both Rob and Bob. They were guys that I always aspired to be like. They knew how to do it right. They competed against the biggest teams and the biggest marks with great aplomb, and it was always something that I aspired to be. When I first started racing in the ALMS, driving for other teams, obviously I would see the Dyson cars usually pass me several times during the course of the race, and it always irked me that I wasn't as quick or our cars weren't as good as that. So that's in no small measure what prompted me to start high drop racing. And in that vein, both Rob and Chris were very instrumental in our getting started, high drop getting started in racing in the ALMS. When we first started with high drop in a professional entrant standpoint, we bought the two Dyson Lola MG DX 57s, and we thought that we had a much better chance to develop as a team if we bought a proven car package that was fully developed, and Dyson's cars were very appealing to us. They very kindly gave us as competitors their cookbook, as they called it, about how to set up the cars. And one of the cars that I still have probably displayed in my showroom is the 16 car that won at Sears Point, only P2 car to ever beat a P1 car at that in an ALMS race, and it's a fantastic car. And Rob and Chris were very instrumental in me getting started. I have one funny story about Rob that I'll tell briefly, and that is I forget what race it was or what the issue was, but there was a drivers meeting that Marty Kaufman was conducting. This is probably in 2006 or 7, and Marty was sort of battling with Rob about some issue, and Rob kept pushing Marty about it, and Marty kept cutting Rob off. And so, without ever hearing a phone ring, and I was right next to Rob picks up his phone and goes, "I'm sorry, what are you saying?" Okay, excuse me, yes. Oh, no, I'll have to get back to you on that. And absolutely, totally interrupted the drivers' meeting, and was basically flipping up his middle finger to Marty Kaufman. and as a team owner, I took note. And I thought, this guy's good. But I do, Highcroft and I share a similar affinity to Limelight Park, and we're sort of two local home teams, and we share the benefit of the very loyal fans that are in this area and this wonderful racetrack. And so to Skip and everybody who works here at Limelight Park, really appreciate everything that you guys have done to help our career. And Rob, you're a true gentleman and a hero to me, and Chris, likewise a great friend, and long may this go on. I hope there's another 30 years of Dyson Racing here at Limelight.
Ollie, since James so blatantly hijacked the story, we've given you some time to come up with some new stuff.
Well, yeah, it's not like James to embellish a story or make shit up, but he did kind of ruin my, yeah, did kind of steal my story. But no, I started off over in the US in racing over in the US in 2000, and I came over to Homestead. And it was pretty obvious at that point that the team to beat was Dyson Racing in the series at that time. And you know, James and Rob were very kind, very nice. They invited me in, and they showed me the team, and they were, you know, showed great hospitality. And even though I was driving for a rival team, and over the next few years, next couple of years in fact, we had some fantastic events and fantastic races. They won most of them, but I do remember one particular race at Watkins Glen, 6-hour race, and I was driving for John Field in the Banana Joe car, the Lola B2K10, and they had the trusty Riley and Scott, and I remember catching James up, which was I was pretty proud of, you know, the fact that I managed to catch him up. And then I sat behind him for probably best part of an hour as he sort of hacked and slashed his way through the traffic. And he had quite a bit of contact with quite a few slower GT cars, and I just kept on his rear wing, on his gearbox, and it was. And I learned a huge amount that day in particular on dealing with slower traffic. And I came in after my stint, I got out of the car and I wandered up the pit lane, and James was sitting there, Butch was sitting there, and the governor was sitting, as we sometimes call Rob, we call him the governor, because he really is the man in charge here. And we had this great conversation, and I was talking to James, and I was saying, James, you know, you were really getting through that traffic pretty quickly, you know, and you know, I did see there was a little bit of an incident a few times through a few of those corners, and James turned to me in classic James Weaver way and just said to me, Ollie, you've got to remember, it's a contact sport. and I sort of remember that forevermore. But no, Rob showed huge generosity in having me in the car to drive a Daytona in 2002, and James has told the story and all that sort of stuff, and I'm sure I was nervous or something was happening. That was the reason why I was taking this Alpha ATP or something, but it was a real pleasure to drive for Rob and a real pleasure to drive with James and with Butch. You know, these are two guys that I looked up to. They were heroes of mine in the sports car world. And that was the thing that Rob was so good at, was giving you an education in sports car racing, you know, teaching you a craft. And, you know, learn that from James, learn that from Butch, from Andy Wallace, you know, and that was pretty much the old school way of doing it. And it still works today, you know, of actually getting out there, you know, rolling your sleeves up, working with a car, working your way through the traffic, you know, actually learning your craft of driving a sports car and dealing with all these different classes that you have to race in, or whichever form of sports car racing you're racing in. You know, you've got to deal with it. And I learned a huge amount just driving that one race at Daytona in 2002. I then went on to drive a couple more races with them in the later years with Guy and others. And you know, I always enjoy driving for Dyson. I always feel like I'm sort of part of the family, even though I've only just done a few races with them, and I would dearly love to come back and do some more with them. And Rob, you know, is fantastic. 30 years in the sport, 30 years here at Lime Rock, fantastic, and I hope one day to be able to come back and drive for you again.
I didn't know this was an audition or, you know, a joke thing, but yeah, just add me to that list. If you can add me to that list to come back, that'd be good.
Maybe you want to review the Hair Week comment.
It was a comb over, no week.
Gotcha. Actually, Ollie made a great transition because it is now down to another driver that's been associated with Dyson Racing for a long time, and it's a great story as well. Much your success, early days GTU, and then getting the opportunity and the success that you were able to achieve with the Dyson team. We leave it to you to wrap things up here, and welcome back, my friend.
Yeah.
I think the best thing about Rob as a driver is that he actually puts up with all the ridiculous schoolboy things that we do, which comes from James's leadership, by the way. I mean, one time at Sebring, we always stay in these condos when we're down in Sebring. So it was me and John Paul sharing one room, so one condo, and James and Andy were in the other one. But we came in, and we were just like, you know, it was early in the week, and we had probably practiced on the Monday, and we were having some beers and just kind of talking about the day. And Rob walked in. Rob had just flown in. And Rob walks in. Everybody gets up. Oh, hey Rob, how are you? And just naturally, every one of them took all, like, you know, we probably had 3 beers in front of each of us on the whole coffee table. Everyone took their beers and slid it in front of me. so Rob, you know, everyone shakes Rob's hand. Rob comes in, sits down. Oh, boys, how are you? How are you? Good. All right. And I was watching him, and I could see him register. And he's like, looks at the table, and there's like 12 beers in front of me. And he just instantly just, oh yeah, that Al Unser Jr.'s got a bit of a drinking problem. and of course James, never one to like let anything go, just started to say, oh Rob, oh that's horrible, Rob. You really have to be able to, you know when to say when on drinking. And just trying to bury me as much as they could. And when that was one of the best things about Rob, is that even when I would do something incredibly stupid, crash one of his cars, and people in Lime Rock will know that happens quite a bit with me. It wouldn't really matter how stupid it was. James and Andy especially would always try to hammer me so much, but oh Rob, I can't believe he did that. Why would he have done that? What a stupid thing to do. And like Rob just likes the underdog so much that even no matter how mad he'd be at me, by the time that James got done berating me, is well we'll put him in tomorrow and he'll be all right again tomorrow. So he always came around, and you knew that Rob had your back, unless you did something phenomenally stupid, which I did a few times too. He didn't even fire me over that. But I think I'm actually, other than Chris, I'm the only person who actually saw Rob race in the beginning. My father raced Datsun 510s the same time Rob did, and you know, these were SCCA nationals, amateur things. There was no entry list. There was, you know, you didn't know who was going to be there until you woke up the day of the practice. And I can remember as a kid, you know, 7 years old at the time, you wake up in the morning and you look out and you just like see what other cars were there, you know, to race against my dad, and you'd say, oh shit, that orange 510, that fast orange 510's here. Well, I probably wouldn't say shit because I was 7. Actually, I might have because I had potty mouth. But it's, you know, I've seen Rob race from the beginning, and he was always fast. And actually, just now thinking about it, I was like thinking about Nelson Ledger for some reason. You had some kind of incident with Paul Newman there, didn't you? I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but I think you and Paul Newman, both in Datsun 510s, hammered into each other the whole way down the front straight there. And didn't you get airborne? Did you hit the bridge? There was some kind of major crash, right?
If YouTube was around, it would be one of the prime. We could show that tonight. And went end over end about 6 times, and the car was in shards. And the next thing I knew is that Newman's helmet was flying by me, and it unfortunately made the front page. I had kept my racing career relatively silent. This isn't a club racing career. Kept it very quiet until it made the front page of the newspaper, our local newspaper. The first call I got, Bobby will appreciate this, the first call I got was from my banker, and the second call was from my insurance agent. Sound familiar, Bobby? And that was one incident I did. Actually, we later became very good lifelong friends, as a matter of fact. In part, the result of that wreck.
Well, it just
keep digging, Butch.
Yeah. I'm about at the end of my tether anyway. And it just, you know, having seen Rob go from the Datsuns, and you know, back then everyone who raced was my hero. So Rob, Bob Sharp, my dad, you know, Bob Tullius, everyone who was around back then, you know, was my hero. None of them are competing anymore. You know, the only person who's still standing, who's still fielding a team, is Rob. You know, it's having been in a family-run race team, it's a hard business. You know, and it's, you know, you have more letdowns than you do, positive feelings after races, and to have the, you know, fortitude to absorb that and want to say, I'm going to do it again, we're going to do it better, and to be able to do that for that long, I think says a lot. You know, like most people eventually just say, right, I want to relax for a while, you know, but that's not really the Dyson mentality. You know, they like to charge, they like to fight, and they, you know, like, you know, and back to kind of the underdog thing, you know, they don't stack the odds in their favor. You know, they take on the fight of, you know, to the heavy hitters. They take on the factories, and you know, and when there is success, it's because they really earned it. It wasn't because they outspent anyone. It wasn't because, you know, they stacked the deck. It's because they fought for it.
Add a couple of things for Rob.
You've already said it.
No, well, actually, now he said that, I'm going to have to tell you. You've dug your own grave, mate. The Homestead story, right? Ollie rocks up from England. Okay, I'm Ollie Gavin, bit of a megastar. Take this, chaps. So he then starts banging wheels with another car, which eventually goes off the road. What he didn't realise, it was Jack Baldwin. Jack Baldwin was like 6'6", wide as a brick outhouse, and he wasn't happy. And so when he came down the pit lane, he literally wanted to disassemble Ollie. And Ollie's going, oh, yeah, I'll show him. No, Ollie, you're not going to show him anything. He's from Texas. He's huge. So I had to hide Ollie in the pits at Homestead until Jack went home. So that's that. As regards Butch, I mean, you know, Butch is a man who's disappointed more fat women than Jenny Craig. okay, you're all saying, look, that's a pretty wimpy thing to say. I can't roast the governor because I owe him so much. I just can't. So, Butch, you're going to have to get it, mate.
All right, okay, give me that. Okay, good. If you all have a minute, Max just reminded me, one time we had an aerodynamic test at Texas World Speedway. And so it involved just a lot of going around 200 miles an hour, but not too much to it. And that night, for some reason, we decided to challenge Max to how many beers we could drink. And but the short end of that, James is also taking I can't remember some kind of sleep, something to help you sleep. So he woke up at 3 in the morning, forgot where he was, opened the door, and locked himself out of his hotel room, which would be okay if he wore clothes. So he had to actually go down to the front desk and saunter up to it, and there was this young girl working, and I talked to her later. She was very unimpressed, and asked for his key. So anyway, there you go.
But that's not strictly true. What she said was, she was mumbled a bit, to be fair, a bit like I am now. And she said, that's just like a penis, only smaller.
Right, before this descends into what goes on in the front in our driver lounge, I think we better stop because the stories are just going to get worse.
Oh, keep going.
All right, enough of this.
Hey Chris, what about the pig?
First, I want to thank everybody that organized this discussion about my racing history with this panel of former friends, and I really do appreciate the fact. It was kind of interesting. I got interviewed earlier this week, and the gal who was interviewing me said, "Is it, you're 30 years? Did you think it was going to last this long?" And I said, "No." And she says, "Does the fact that you've been doing it for 30 years, do you reflect on it that it's really..." I noticed that he kept on leaving the house on Sunday mornings, and I didn't know where he was going, but he was going with Matt Charlin, who's still with us. Matt's one of our top guys, and I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. And I walked into the shop one day, and there were 2 go-karts in the far corner. And I said, so I kind of gently asked around to a couple of the guys, said, "What's a go-kart?" "Oh, that's one of Matt's projects. That's one of Matt's projects." "Oh, okay." So I didn't bring it up to Matt. A couple weeks later, I said, "Hey Matt, where do you run these things?" He kind of looked down at the floor and said, "We run them at the Route 55 Speedway right near the Page Lumber Company plant." I said, "Oh, okay." So I finally decided that I ought to go over and see the Sunday show, and looking out, what do I see? Driving with one of my old helmets and one of those go-kart things, but I see Chris running out there with Matt Charlin, and that was I knew I was in trouble from then on. So did his mother. Anyway, the other thing is that Chris and I actually were in the same weight class. Wasn't it the same weight class? Were we medium or something? Medium, anyway. So I was driving against my son. "Well, Bobby, if you run against Graham," yeah, it's a whole different level, especially when you're running in dirt and you can't see, 3 feet in front of you. And Chris beat me all but once. And I'm going to tell you something. That one race that I beat him, I feel really good about to this day.
I thought you were going to talk about the time.
This isn't really like a Dyson IMSA story, but it's a family story. And one day Dad was racing, and he was actually really competitive. And we were coming out of the last corner and he started to go underneath me, so I sort of gave him a healthy chop. And next thing you know, he goes spinning around. He comes into the pits and just starts screaming at this other guy. This poor guy had no idea why he was screaming at him. I go up, I go, what's the problem? He goes, that guy just took me out. I go, I took you out.
Like I said, you couldn't see 3 feet in front of you. But anyway,
it's so good.
I do want to thank everybody. It's been a wonderful ride. It's a thrill to be a part of this ongoing thing that we do, and it's a great thing that we live in this country, which is such a great country, to be able to expand our businesses so that we can afford to do this kind of thing and be a part of it. And it's just wonderful to be celebrating this at Lime Rock, which is kind of which is one of the great things about it, is that when I think back on it, here we are at Lime Rock starting our 30th year when we started in that Firebird, which was probably among 2 or 3 of the shittiest chassis I've ever driven. But anyway, I do want to thank everybody for being here, and I especially thank, Ollie and Skip, Bobby, James, when I noticed when Greg said something about gainfully employed. I kept on saying they were employed, but I'm not sure about gainfully. And so I appreciate James, Don, of course, compadre, great friend, one of my favorite car owners. Us car owners have a specific bond against, with one another. We're kind of up against the world and this kind of thing. Guy who has done just such a fabulous job with us all the years, and got to know his family as well. Scott, who has done an absolutely superb job running IMSA, and will do a terrific job running the United Sports Car Series. He's teed up for that. They are preserving a lot of the people that are familiar to all of us here this weekend, and I'm really pleased and proud and honored that that's going to happen. Max, of course, who is more than a vendor or a supplier of parts or a guy that repairs all our carbon fiber bodywork. Our lineage goes back a long way, and Price Cobb worked with Max years and years ago, and that was part of the early connection. And I'm really honored that he came up to do this, and I appreciate it. And Marino, of course, talking about your family, I do believe you have a good haircut, and but he did a terrific job for us. He's a wonderful competitor and a great guy, and a wonderful ambassador for the sport. When I see Duncan, my fondest hope is that Duncan comes back into competing. We've competed against one another for 2 or 3 seasons. It was always a pleasure, if you can believe it, a pleasure to compete against great other car owners and competitors. And then, of course, Butch, who I got to know when he was 7 years old, bitching about the fact that I was at the car race. But the other thing is that Butch also did a terrific job for us. I learned more following his dad around Nelson Ledges when he was lined up and I was lined up, and I said, well, it's now or never. He's one of the guys, so you better I put the nose of my car right underneath the back of his car, and it was nose to tail, and I said, you got to do everything this guy does, and I couldn't believe it. I was looking and saying, God, his left front in a left turn, his left front wheel was off the ground. Well, shit, I guess mine is too. And it put me at a whole nother level, and that was the thing that unlocked kind of my competitiveness in racing. But I will tell you one thing. All of the drivers that I've had, Butch, Marino, Guy, Chris, Bobby, James, Ollie, and a whole bunch of other guys that are really great people, Andy Wallace. The key to them was they were great human beings. They're great human beings. They love sports car racing. They love racing. They want to compete. They want to win, but they're decent, hard-working, great guys. And I want to tell you how much of an honor it is to have known all of these people. Bobby, Ollie, James, well, sort of. And then Butch, Marino, and Guy. It's been terrific. And all the other guys that work with us, John Paul, who's really hurting now, and Bruce Levin, I drove for Bruce. So did Bobby. Bobby drove for Bruce. What if he got paid from Bruce? I'll have to ask him. Anyway, I do want to thank you all for coming. I appreciate this. Yes, sir.
For the fans, the one voice that has yet to be heard, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's been an amazing career, 30 years. God, it's been awesome. Thanks for coming out to everybody on